Alright, what's up guys? Got another video of what if Anakin Skywalker broke up with Padme during the Clone Wars. So if you like this type of content, then be sure to subscribe for more what if fanfics, lore, comics, reviews, video essays, and just all things Star Wars. But with all that out of the way, why don't we just dive right on in. So the story starts during the events of the Clone Wars. Anakin and Padme had been married for about a year, but Skywalker felt the connection he had formed with her slipping. Padme recently was involved with Clovis, which Anakin was jealous of, but he understood what she was trying to do. But this put a thought in the back of his mind that she would go to any lengths for the Republic, even if it meant throwing away their marriage. To her, it didn't seem like that, but to Anakin, this just created a sort of divide with his wife. They rarely saw each other, and when they did, they had to cram months worth of time into only one night of being together. And to the Chosen One, this grew exhausting. When he was in the midst of battle with the 501st, his thoughts weren't about victory or his men or even Ahsoka. They were about Padme. From the time he left Tatooine, she was all he thought about. It grew tiresome. He still loved her, but that fire, that passion that he had for her was dying down. Anakin had just come back from a rough mission on Geonosis, and he sat in his and Padme's apartment. He sat on the edge of their bed just thinking about the Jedi, the Republic, and the galaxy as a whole. He wanted to end this war, but he thought about the Jedi Code and why it was in place. The Jedi had existed for over 25,000 years, and sure it needed to change, but it stood as a beacon of hope. But that's when Anakin saw Padme walk in. She saw her husband deep in thought, and as she walked up, she hugged him from behind. Anakin's thoughts turned to Padme and this whole relationship as a whole. He was tired of hiding it. He wanted to be a Jedi. He needed to focus on the war. He didn't want to do this, but he thought it was necessary. The Chosen One spoke to his wife. Padme, this isn't working. I can't keep doing this. Naboo's senator looked confused. What do you mean? What are you trying to say? She asked. Skywalker just looked at her, and Padme could see the discontent in his eyes. She knew what he was going to say, but she wanted to hear him say it directly to her. Anakin continued, I think you know already, but if you want me to spell it out, then I don't think we can be together anymore. A tear fell down her face, and all Padme could do was just sit there. Anakin sighed, getting up. The Republic, this war, everything, this relationship, it just can't work. Padme just stared at him as he continued on. I'm sorry, but this marriage, it's over. Anakin carried a ring around, only taking it off in dire times, but he removed it and put it next to Padme. She could only watch as her husband walked out. Skywalker turned around. Know that I will always love and care for you, but I think it's better if we just remain close friends instead of husband and wife. Padme saw him leaving, and she just couldn't let him go. Not like that. So she ran forward, grabbing his arm and begging him to stop. Anakin closed his eyes, sighing and turning around and looking at Padme. Skywalker looked into her eyes and saw the determination. She spoke. I won't let you end it like this. We're soulmates. We're supposed to be together. Anakin sighed once more and put his hand on her shoulders. I'm sorry, but this marriage is over. There are more important things at stake, and you and me, we just can't work right now. Padme didn't understand. Anakin was head over heels in love with her. She knew how much he thought about her, and she couldn't fathom why he was leaving her. If anyone was going to leave, it would be her. She never had someone just walk out on her before, let alone break up with Padme Amidala. Anakin was continuing to leave, but Padme yelled, mad, "You're not leaving! I won't let you!" Anakin had enough. He upped the tone of his voice. Enough! Please, don't embarrass yourself any further. She was taken aback and she could only watch as her husband left her. Over the next few days, Anakin came back to move his stuff out of their apartment, and he moved back to his room in the Jedi Temple, and after a few more weeks, he felt weird, but at the same time good. Like a weight had just been lifted off his shoulders. He didn't have to lie or hide anything anymore, at least the relationship. He could just be a Jedi and a general, and over the next few months, the Clone Wars continued, and Anakin was sent out on missions with Ahsoka and the 501st. These all ended in victory, and Anakin put his attention on training his Padawan and the war effort. The others around him saw something had changed, but weren't sure about what it was. For the first time since he was a boy, he wasn't thinking about Padme. But for the Naboo senator, things weren't the same as Anakin. She began slipping. Skywalker was all she thought about. Day and night, she thought about her ex-husband. She couldn't fathom someone leaving her. She just couldn't accept it. Padme began obsessing. As a result, slacked in her senator duties. She would miss Senate meetings, and if she was with someone important, she paid them no mind. Others close to her became concerned, like Bail Organa or Amon Mothma, and as a result of her negligence to being a senator, Palpatine and the Republic as a whole took notice. And word of this spread like wildfire and made its way to Anakin on the war front. Even if they weren't together, he still cared for her, so the next time he returned to Coruscant, he visited his ex-wife. She was in her office at the Senate. Anakin walked in as she stared out the window. Skywalker was in awe of her beauty and wondered if he made the right choice, but he pushed back that thought as she turned around and with a sad expression spoke. Oh, hello, General Skywalker. To what do I owe the pleasure? Anakin could tell something was off. Padme, you don't have to be so formal with me. We're still friends, right? Padme chuckled. I'm only doing what you wanted." Anakin felt some spite behind that, but continued on. You can still talk to me. You don't have to be alone." Padme had a grin. "Well, isn't that just great? Then I am doing fine, Master Jedi, and I would like to be left alone now." Anakin sighed, nodding and leaving. But Padme turned around, tears falling down her eyes, but she had a horrific smile on her face. She finally got to see her Annie, hers and no one else's. Her mind was beginning to break, and Padme had become obsessive over Anakin. She would do anything to get him back. Anything. Time passed and Padme's obsession only grew, sending spies to gather information on Anakin's whereabouts and finding out every little thing he was up to and everyone he interacted with. He couldn't leave her. That just wasn't a thing. She would put up a facade of accepting his breakup with her, but in reality that was far from the truth. She put her efforts back into the Senate, making it look like she had moved on, at least in Anakin's eyes, and so he did the same. The Chosen One put his marriage to Padme behind him and he focused towards the future, but with Padme's obsession, she grew terrifyingly jealous of any female who was even near Anakin. Whether that was another female Jedi, another important political figurehead like Satine, but at the forefront of her hatred was Ahsoka, the one girl close to Anakin that was always by his side. She wanted her out of the way by any means necessary, and when Ahsoka was framed for the Jedi Temple bombing, she put her plan into action. She hired Cad Bane to investigate the bombing and discovered that Barriss Offee was the one responsible. She had Cad Bane murder Barriss and use the evidence to make it look like Ahsoka was the one solely responsible, more so than originally. And with Barriss dead, Anakin wouldn't find any evidence to free Ahsoka, and Skywalker could only watch as his Padawan was sentenced to be executed. The execution would be carried out immediately, and Ahsoka was taken away. In reality, it was about a day, but Anakin visited Ahsoka in her cell as she awaited her fate. Ahsoka could see the look on her master's face, and she knew what he was thinking. "Master, it's okay. My time has come, and even though I am innocent, please do not fight back. I know you. Promise me, Master." Anakin had tears in his eyes as he promised. The next day, Tano was taken to the execution grounds in the underbelly of Coruscant. Palpatine hadn't expected for Ahsoka to die. He felt like something else was at play, something darker. But it worked out either way. He would still turn Anakin to the dark side. Anakin couldn't believe this. He could do nothing as Ahsoka was brought to her knees with an audience watching. Palpatine, Mas Amedda, along with many other politicians. But also the Jedi Council and Anakin. Ahsoka was sentenced to die by firing squad, and the ones who were forced to do it were the 501st. Another punch in the gut to Anakin. Rex held up his blaster to Ahsoka's head as time slowed down, and Anakin watched as his Padawan was gunned down by the very men she fought alongside. Rex dropped the gun to the floor in disgust, along with the other 501st clones, as Palpatine secretly smiled. The Jedi Council looked down in sadness, and Padme smiled. One obstacle out of the way for her to be with Anakin once more. But for Anakin, the Chosen One felt a rage like never before. This was different. His mother he was too late to save, but his Padawan, he could have done something. He could have fought to save her, even if that meant going against the entire Republican Jedi. But he just stood there, doing nothing. His anger was brimming. The darkness surrounded him, and every Force user there felt it. None more so than Yoda and Palpatine. The Sith and Jedi Council felt the darkness, the power behind Anakin, and they were taken aback. But Skywalker felt the hand of Padme grab his, and he remembered everything. The first time they met, falling in love with her and marrying her on Naboo, the rush of emotions came flooding back, and inside Padme's mind, she knew she had him right where she wanted. Palpatine saw this and realized Padme was the one behind this, but there was something more. That darkness, he felt it. A darkness that would overshadow even his. But he scowled, and from afar, Padme saw this and got a weird sense Palpatine wanted Anakin to himself just as much as she wanted him. Crazy understands crazy, I guess. The Jedi took Ahsoka and her body was burned at the temple with Anakin, Padme, Obi-Wan, and the rest of the council attending. Obi-Wan looked at his apprentice and it seemed as if the light was gone from his eyes, like there was nothing there anymore. Anakin was the last to leave, and after he did, he returned to his room in the temple and just sat there in silence. He didn't move for 2 days, just thinking and meditating, dealing with his inner turmoil and emotions. But that's when Padme came back to his mind. She had been there for him in his darkest hour, and he realized he made a mistake when he left her. He couldn't lose anyone else. He wouldn't, so he promised himself that he would save those closest to him no matter what. Anakin left his room walking past any Jedi and made his way to Padme's apartment. When he arrived, she was already inside, staring out of the window. She was as beautiful as the day they first met. Padme turned around and smiled when she saw Anakin, and Skywalker did the same. He walked up and hugged her. "I'm sorry for leaving in that moment. I couldn't save her, but you were there, and that made me realize I love you." Padme smiled. "I love you too, Annie." Padme almost couldn't contain herself. Her plan worked so well, and now she had Anakin right where she wanted, all to herself. And as the two shared a kiss, Anakin had a vision. In the vision, he saw Padme with the bounty hunter, and he saw them plotting Ahsoka's death. Anakin realized this, and as the vision ended, he pulled away, confusing Padme, and he looked at her in shock and disgust. "It It was you. You're the reason my Padawan is dead. Padme had a look of horror across her face. How did he find out, she thought. There should have been no evidence. Padme stammered. Annie, it's not what it looks like. That's not true. Anakin grew enraged. Don't lie to me. Padme couldn't contain her smile anymore and broke out into a full-on laughter. Anakin looked at her in absolute horror. She laughed about Ahsoka's death. This wasn't Padme. This wasn't the woman he fell in love with. This was someone else. Something else entirely. Why couldn't you just stay with me? It was that simple. We were soulmates. Anakin had no words. You're not Padme. What are you? Padme sighed. I've gone by many names, Annie. Most recently Padme Amidala, Senator of Naboo and wife or ex-wife to Anakin Skywalker. But I've gone by many other names. The most notable being the Mother or Abeloth. Padme grew a hideous smile and Anakin felt the darkness behind it. He felt the cold, the abyss. She was the literal embodiment of darkness and death. Padme doesn't exist. I am her, but I am an entity older than the Republic itself, she spoke. He backed away in fear and Padme, or whatever she was, had a tear fall down her face. She truly loved Anakin. He was the one thing she actually cared about. The rest was just out of boredom. That's just why she couldn't let him leave. He belonged with her. Skywalker was hers and hers alone. Anakin ignited his saber as Padme inched closer. The Padme he knew was gone, or replaced by this monster. He launched forward, attempting to thrust his blade into her abdomen, but Padme created a tendril and simply grabbed the lightsaber, stopping it. Anakin looked in shock as Padme or Abeloth destroyed his saber like it was nothing. With a flick of her other hand, Anakin was sent flying back from a massive force push and felt his bones break as he crashed into the wall. His body was broken, and in less than 2 attacks, the Chosen One was on the verge of death. With blood dripping down his face, he stared up as he watched Padme lean down and kiss him. Padme's guards heard the noise and rushed inside, only to find an empty and destroyed apartment. Word spread of the disappearance of Naboo Senator Padme Amidala. But when Anakin didn't return to the Jedi Temple after more than a week, a search was put into effect, but led nowhere, and after more than 3 months, the search was called off. Obi-Wan was distraught over the disappearance of Anakin. Word spread of the poster boy of the Republic vanishing as well, and when Palpatine heard this and learned the search led nowhere, he was furious. Skywalker was supposed to be his new apprentice. But now he had to change plans. He turned Baylan Skoll and the Grand Inquisitor to the dark side and used them. Mace Windu and Kit Fisto rescued Palpatine from the Invisible Hand and killed Count Dooku. And after the Jedi Council confronted Palpatine to have him give up his emergency powers, he caught them off guard, killing Mace Windu, Saesee Tiin, Agen Kolar, and Kit Fisto. Palpatine then launched Order 66 and used the Grand Inquisitor to lower the temple defenses, with Baylan Skoll leading the charge and killing every Jedi in sight. Also with the help of hundreds to thousands of clones and a couple of Venators, but Yoda and Obi-Wan survived, but without Luke and Leia, they went into hiding to fight another day. Palpatine created the Empire and became Emperor, with Baylan Skoll as his apprentice, with him and the Grand Inquisitor leading the Inquisitors to hunt down any remaining Jedi. But Padme or Abeloth watched as the galaxy was thrust into more turmoil and chaos, but none of that mattered. She had Anakin all to herself. They had stayed in Naboo by the lakeside for about 2 years until the Empire came there, and then she moved on to Mortis. What was once her prison was now her home with Anakin. Here, Anakin was stuck, trapped with this monster that took everything from him. But through the years of being stuck with her, his mind created an illusion that he was truly in love with her, a case of Star Wars Stockholm Syndrome, if you will. Padme manipulated his mind, and then Anakin embraced his role as the Chosen One, unlocking his full potential and becoming the father. And after a few more years, Padme or Abeloth gave birth to twins, Luke and Leia, who became the new son and daughter. The Skywalker family were now the ones, and stayed on Mortis, ruling while the galaxy was once more sent into war with the Empire and the Rebellion. Alright, so that's the story. Definitely a unique one, especially with that ending. I'm guessing you probably didn't see fucking Padme becoming Abeloth. I just kind of tossed that in there in the end. But the main thing that I wanted to take away with the story, or like just have the main aspect be, is Padme being a crazy bitch, basically a yandere, if you will. If you don't know what that is, it's from anime, and it's where pretty much what Padme was, a girl obsessed with a guy and willing to do anything, even killing motherfuckers for the person they're in love with. Basically a super crazy bitch, if you will. And I wanted to have that tied in with like a horror aspect of Padme being Abeloth all along. I feel like if I didn't add in the whole Abeloth part, it would just definitely feel like out of character, and I just kind of wanted to have Padme just be this fucking overpowered monster that Anakin could do nothing against. And throughout the story, I also added in hints that, you know, something was definitely off about her. Definitely got pretty fanficky, but hey, I had fun writing it. But if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to see more from me, go check out my other channels, which will be linked down below. And if you want to donate to see a short or a video done, then the link to my Cash App will be linked down below. You don't have to, it'll just be down there as well. Also, if my audio does sound different, it's just because I bought a new mic and I'm still testing the waters with the audio, just testing things out, seeing what sounds good, what doesn't, and just, trying to find the right effects for it. Also, got some gameplay in the background because your boy got work kind of early tomorrow and I wanted to get this video out. But with all that out of the way, I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.